Yeah. Welcome to the seminar, Make Democracy for Youth Great Again. And this is a panel that is have the pleasure to have the the documentary film producer in the panel, Jan Scherman, here today, and we will discuss this with a panel of youth from different countries in Europe. My name is Margareta Eklund and I represent Freja Forum Academy. We have been working with different democracy and equal opportunity subjects since the war in former Yugoslavia. So therefore we have a long experience, and since 3 years we have had youth panels coming to Almedalen, and now they will tell you a lot about democracy. Have a nice time.
Thank you, Margareta. And my name is Caroline Nyberg-Wass, and I have been asked to moderate this seminar. And it's a great honor to do that. And I'm a political scientist and former politician, but I've also been here in Almedalen since 2002. And due to my engagement here, we also started an organization called The Great Listening. And now we are opening up this kind of meeting spaces all around the world, actually, based on the idea of democracy, on dialogue and listening to each other. So this is a great honor for me to be here. And we don't have to state that much, I think, about democracy and the issues and the challenge with democracy, because I think all of us in the room and all of you who are listening online, I think we can agree. We can agree, but I just want to state that I think that democracy and the challenge with democracy is as urgent as the climate change. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our panel for today. We have youth representatives from Sweden. We have Martin, and there's Belma from Bosnia-Herzegovina, Theodora from North Macedonia, and Leah from Serbia. And it's an honor for me to introduce you, and we are very happy that you are here today. And you're going to be a part of this seminar in different ways. And John has said that he wants you to ask questions during the seminar as well, so we have a lively discussion about the issue. But first, before I give the floor to John, I'd like to introduce Patrik Andersson, who is actually the guy who makes this happen here, because we are here because you invited us to come. He's from the Social Venture Network, and you can just introduce yourself and tell us why we're here.
Yes, thank you so much. And very welcome to our stage at Almedalen. So I'm the chairman of Social Venture Network, an independent member organization working for sustainable transformation and, of course, democracy development. So I was very happy with Margareta's idea on this talk, and very thrilled to have you here. So a very warm welcome to you in the house and online. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're going to jump into the issue about democracy and the future. And as I said, it's like the climate change, it's do or die in a way, I think. And we have to decide what kind of world we want to live in and what kind of world we're going to leave to future generations. And one of the persons who is extra engaged in this issue and has been for many years is Jan Scherman. And you are a journalist, and you wanted me to introduce you as a storyteller as well. And that's and for you who's not from Sweden, I just want to say that Jan is one of the most famous and well-known journalists in Sweden, who won many awards. I just want to say it, and he's a role model for us in many ways. But I will leave the floor to you, and tell us about your burning heart.
My burning heart, yes, it's burning since 50 years ago. I've been a journalist actually for half a century, so don't guess how old I am for the moment. I still feel young and engaged, and I like your picture, even if it's actually very dreadful. This democracy crisis is as urgent as the climate crisis, no doubt about it. I was a little bit nervous before coming here because I didn't know if I shall prepare a speech for 40 minutes. I have, but I'm a flexible guy, so we can walk together along the road, but the code of conduct is interrupt me, for God heaven's sake. I've done that with all the politicians for 50 years, so I'm used to it. You can pay back now, pay back time. But I would like to start this session by showing you a short clip from the film I recently produced. We didn't ask Donald Trump about the title, we just grabbed it and called it Make Democracy Great Again. It was released actually in September last year. Since that, I've been traveling like hell, sorry for the wording. I've been visiting, if we include Visby, in 44 different places in Sweden, and had sessions together with the people coming to the cinema. It's been wonderful, because after all those meetings, I'm getting more and more, this is big news, more optimistic, not more pessimistic. There is a lot of energy out there among people, and I hope we can proceed on that road today, even if the challenges are extremely big. So I hope you don't mind, but we have made a special edition in 10 minutes in English that shows you pretty good what this film is about. So shall we start with looking at that? I think it's nice to sit down during those 10 minutes. Otherwise your necks will be turned upside down. Okay, here we go.
Equality and democracy are under assault.
Attacks on democracy are increasing and becoming more severe.
The group planned to storm the Parliament building and seize.
Parliament is a disgrace.
Are we in a worldwide crisis of democracy?
In the last 10 years, I have seen a frightening backlash. The number of people in the world living in fully fledged democracies is now as low as 13%. But there are also those who are fighting for the democracy that we take for granted.
Dödsstatistiken, brottslighet. Ibland ser man inget hopp. Men det finns lite hopp.
And I ask the question, where is the world? Why is the world not hearing us?
I wonder, will democracy survive?
If you put the word lavender here in your GPS, it's gonna flash you a red flag. And that red flag means it's danger. My relationship to the community of Lavender Hill is, I see myself as a protector, as a human rights defender. My work here is much more than the daily struggles for safety, the daily struggles for human dignity, the daily struggles for holding this democracy accountable for us as women not feeling free, not feeling safe. The transition from apartheid to democracy, there was lots of support in the country. There were peacekeepers, there were people looking to make sure that we did not have war. And it was a good transition, and democracy was there. I think the world just didn't came back to say, how are you doing? Are you really coping? What is the support that you need? Because 28 years later, things is quite dire. If we look at murders, if we look at rapes, if we look at what has been done to children. And so the question I put here today, I ask the question, how free do we really think we are in this democracy?
Tjena! Tjena! Janne,
Per,
får jag ställa lite frågor då?
Scherman ställer vi inte upp för. Du är en fiende till våra åsikter, det vet jag.
Per Öberg,
Ja, Jan Scherman.
Jag visste inte att vi var i krig.
Alltså, det är vi inte. Det är lågintensivt och politiskt än så länge. Men du tillhör motståndarsidan.
Men du, jag ville bara att du skulle berätta. Vad är det för samhälle som ni vill bygga? Du står ju här och valkampanjar.
Ja, vi vill ha ett samhälle där vita är värda någonting. Det är de inte idag.
Och hur ska man komma dit?
Ja, jag kan förklara det i timmar, men inte till Jan Scherman.
Men nu undrar jag, kan du tänka dig i något läge att använda våld för att uppnå de mål du vill?
Ja, alltså, om vi är trängda så att vi håller på att förintas, då är det klart vi bits tillbaks.
Men för att erövra makten, menar jag.
Ja, men det säger jag inte.
Du säger att ni har fått makten nu och det är ditt politiska program som styr landet. Finns det olika partier där som tävlar mot varandra?
Alltså, du kan ju läsa på vårt program. Vi är emot det parlamentariska systemet. Ja, jag har pratat tillräckligt. Alldeles för mycket egentligen. Men...
Så där tog intervjun slut? Eller?
Ja, det gjorde den.
Okej,
ja.
Då säger vi tack för
det
det
gör vi.
Hej, hej.
Hej, hej.
If you tried to organize a neo-Nazi rally in this building, they'd say, no. If you try to organize it on Facebook, you're completely welcome. And that's really unusual. Our society now is treating the most fringe and obscene of movements, dangerous ideas, with more attention than it does people who just want to have a proper dialogue. If you consume nonsense information, your opinions are nonsense. Our ability to form society is damaged. Our ability to form consensus, have democratic, liberal politics is damaged. It affects everything. And very few liberal democracies have gotten to grips with the fact that in just a few years, the values that underpin our societies have been turned upside down by social media.
Who here honestly believes their voice is heard in Washington right now? Our nation is in danger. In 2016, we voted for a changed nation. We voted for a wall. We voted to repeal the Unaffordable Care Act. We voted for a government that represents the people rather than...
What do you think of the political climate in America today?
It looks like not being able to talk to people at your job about how you feel because of your concern for repercussions. You look shocked at that.
Yes.
That in America, that's common sense. Is you don't, if you're a Republican in New York, you do not bring it up.
This polarization, you're not afraid that when it increases, it leads to physical actions?
I don't want us to be in that situation, but the problem is that one side, namely the left, has been increasingly resorting to more aggressive, to more violent tactics.
I think sadly, unfortunately, hasn't gotten better under this current administration. In my lifetime, we're certainly at a height in terms of polarization.
What will happen? Conflict.
People have gotten more interested in firearms, not just to find a community, but for personal safety, safeguarding democracy itself. People have a lot of new worries, right? People used to take for granted that the federal government and the politicians would work things out, but now I see it in my neighbors. People are very worried about very basic things still working, 4, 6, 8 years from now at the federal level.
Today we are presenting a European cybersecurity and defense package.
Hello there.
Hi, yeah, hello, very nice to see you.
The same.
Yeah. We wanted the freedom of the internet, the freedom of exchange, the freedom of creating communities that were not bound by national border or physical presence. But that has turned sour. And this is, of course, why democracy must say no. The rules that we have passed in the real world, they are also applicable when we're in what is for many people a digital reality. Because we cannot have a democracy where the rules of the game is decided in a boardroom.
What must be done, I mean, to strengthen democracy?
Well, first and foremost, everyone will have to realize that no one can do it alone. This is something that we'll have to do together, because everything important is done in a community.
But you still think democracy is stronger than the big tech companies?
Yes, I do. But only if democracy is being used. Then democracy can change the world.
We want to raise the next generation of men and women that would not use violence as a force. So currently we run a gender-based violence program. Even if my voice is this little voice between these containers, I'm not somebody special, but I will hold them accountable every day through this work with the breath that I have in my lungs until I don't have any more breath. Because this is what it needs to be. We have to build the next generation of responsible leaders, men and women that will be able to work together. I used to cry my eyes out in the beginning. And one day I said, no, you can't. You can't save the world, but you can make a meaningful impact with one person at a time. Sometimes it requires for you to actively listen to somebody else. And this is what leadership is about. It is about when the people call, I will honor the call, but then jointly we will walk together to where we are needed.
Yes.
It's maybe a little bit hard to understand. I mean, the film is 1 hour and 20 minutes, so the dramaturgic line is not so easy to follow. But I think you got some sort of perception of the story. I'm keen on hearing your comments. What do you think when you have seen this?
I like actually the conclusion of the film. It was very, very hopeful and positive, and like next generations really can make a change. So I like the congratulations for the documentary.
I'd say that it's very reflective of today's society, and not only in the countries that were presented in the actual movie, but also in other countries. And it really shows how we've regressed back throughout time, and how we revert mostly to violence, even though it has been continuously referred to as not the right track to move on to. However, I agree with Wilma. It was an amazing conclusion, and it's a very well crafted film, so I'm excited to discuss the topics within it.
Well, the democracy is about stating different opinions, and what I like is that you took into account both opinions and you heard them all. You know, you didn't just push a certain narrative, you heard them all out. And that is like the way that the democracy should work. You know, everyone should find compromise and common solutions. No matter differences in opinions, there is hope for, you know, humankind after all. And you see this from the example of a lady who's doing this in her neighborhood on a local level, and we need those kinds of people who, you know, move things on the field, like not only talk about it, but do it with their lives and live like an example of their own ideals, not only talk. So, yeah.
I think you put the finger on a very sensitive point. I mean, it's easy because we have so many opinions in common, but to listen to someone who says something that you really don't like, and to be polite in that listening and really listening and try to understand, because that's the inner sense. I agree what democracy is about. Remember, it's the only system that we know that accepts that we have different opinions. And we who think that we're right must take that into our bodies, our souls, our heart, and also accept that you don't think the same way I do. I'm for Hammarby as a soccer team. You don't know them, but there are many others that don't like them. But remember again, it's the only system that accepts different opinions. Sorry, it was your turn.
No, you're good. I very much agree. You can't have democracy if there is just one side, and to be able to have a good democracy, both sides have to listen to each other. And if there are no discussions, then even though you can live in a democratic country, the country itself will become very polarized, and it won't, like, it's a democracy as like the system, but it isn't an actual democracy because both sides aren't heard by each other. They're not discussing, they aren't listening, and that all leads to, as we saw in the movie, sadly, to violence and to hatred, because you don't understand the other side at all, because you're not willing to listen.
Yeah, the only thing that I do not agree with the movie is when a lady said, I cannot change the world, but I can change one person at a time. Actually, it's not true, because if I change you, you change immediately. I change the other, you change, so it multiplies. So it's not one person, it's actually much, much more. So we should not lose hope and stay.
That's also very good, because you don't need to agree what's said in the film. There's a guy from the suburb, which you noted in the beginning. He somewhere in the movie he says, it's a shit that we ordinary people must do the job of the politicians, because they have started up groups, walking around in the nights to prevent violence, etc. And when he has said that, I've been in many debates where people are very angry on him. It's not a question on that the politicians shall do everything. It's a duty of ourselves to be part of a living democracy, to start up different groups working in the night to prevent violence. So, and that's why I thought it was important to give me the title storyteller, because I'm walking around and listen, and I want you to listen to what the people said. Shall we just make a mark on the maps, because I'm very happy that you saw the light in the end of the story, but to come to the light, I think it's also very important to understand the sense of urgency that we are living in, because it's a very critical point now. This is a super election year. Half of the planet's people are going to vote this year. It could be really a rising up story or a further step downwards. There's a lot of scientific studies today. The map that you see here is from Freedom House. There is the figure that is picked up in the movie. 13% of the Earth's population. That's the small minority living in full extended democracies. I think it's a horrifying figures. In this study from, I think it's American economic newspaper, it's down to 8. This is a Swedish study, Varieties of Democracy. Latest report said that we are pushed back around 30 years, the days before the Iron Curtain was blocked down. So, I mean, we've been walking back for quite many years. Well, this is a picture from the city. I thought you should have some nature landscape just to relax on. Isn't it beautiful? And another thing, remember that democracy is a very young story. It's 100 years ago. That, I mean, if we talk about mankind, it's just a blink. And also remember this. Now I'm talking about Sweden. It took a very long time before we actually could talk about democracy in some sort of full extent. 1989, that's quite recently. people with what we call intellectual disabilities in Sweden gain the right to vote. Something to consider. This was actually the reason why I made a series of documentaries a couple of years ago, 2018, for Swedish television. And at that time, you know, when I went to Swedish television, they asked me, "Are you sure there is a threat against democracy? It's just 6 years ago." So when you think about that and put it 10 years ahead, where will we be? And at that time I met this guy, as you see to the left, Jason Brennan, professor in Washington, who has written this book in Swedish, which is a very kind translation, After Democracy. In English, the book is named Against Democracy. And Brennan is really arguing for a system where people who has the best knowledge, the best education, they are the only one who will have the right to vote. It's translated into 20 languages. It's spread all over the world. So this is actually, when I grew up, you know, I thought it was totally unbelievable that anyone, any ordinary people or any scientific kind of people would doubt that democracy was the best system. But that isn't the case anymore.
I've read the book, and I think to kind of mellow down its tone, it would be best to utilize the ideas that are within the book, right? To have very smart and educated people voting. Instead of that, we could utilize experts and educated people to work in specific fields. For example, in education, you would only have educated people that know about what they're supposed to do, especially also within the government. So within, for example, for political advisors, for the president, or within the parliament, it's important to make sure that only the best of the best are within the groups that are supposed to.
What do you think about that? What were your reactions when you read the book?
I thought it was a bit extreme to only let the most educated people vote, because then it's not a complete freedom. It's not an equal space for all. However, I think that the idea to have most educated and well-versed people to work in specific fields that are supposed to take care of the country and the people within it is a good strategy and idea to build a strong political system and strong democracy.
Yeah, but people who are not educated, actually, it's very easy. They're vulnerable group of people, and it's very easy to manipulate them when it comes to elections and those things.
Yeah, so that's why it has to be very, very professional, very real people that want to do the work and want to help to work. However, then there's the question of how do you assess who would work and who wouldn't be in those top ranks, whether they could be corrupted or whether they can't be, because there's so many countries that call themselves democracies that have very corrupt governments, and it's very difficult for them to progress, especially in the Western Balkans, because of that corruption.
But there are many people, educated people, top like 10%, who just don't care about change. They do not want to initiate change because it doesn't concern themselves. They are living a good life. So we have, I'm saying there are exceptions, of course, but people are just like, self-absorbed. Many times great knowledge and intelligence comes with ego. So I think they should explain, educate.
Yes.
They should make, they should ensure a public-private dialogue, NGO-public dialogue, NGO-private dialogue, so we can have different vantage points of everything that's happening, because sometimes you're blind.
Yeah, and also the educational system should really work on building up people and the youngsters to understand that it's not only about them, but it's about everyone else as well, and that when they grow up and when they have to work in these fields that they choose to, they have to decide whether they will work for the public and really dedicate themselves for it, and then they will help the overall government and democracy, or whether they will do something in the private sector and do it for themselves.
But let's go back to this crucial question, because what Jason Brennan is talking about is that his conclusion is that there is an elite in the country that is more important than others, but who is defining what kind of knowledge that is the most important?
It's very hard to you cannot decide, one person cannot decide who will be in that structural elite. And
no. So I mean, so let's not leave this aside. I mean, democracy means that every human being is the same in value and in knowledge, because we have different kind of knowledges.
Yes.
In Sweden, we had a system in the late 18s where people who were very rich had more votes than others, and that is what I remember when that's what I think about when I read Jason Brennan's book.
Yeah,
it's like Plato or Aristoteles, and he's calling his system for epistocracy, and my conclusion with this is that it's very interesting, if you're neutral, that this book can get such an impact in our society nowadays.
I think that it's because he discusses a kind of controversial topic in regard, because he's making it out to seem that his idea is to exclude most of society from that elite circle. So I think that's why most people are interested in hearing his ideas, because it's very controversial and it's very provocative in this in the scene of politics and the society at this point.
But I'm sure that you are also well aware about that. I have seen a lot of studies nowadays where when you ask young people about democracy, more and more young people think that it's better that those who knows best take control of a country. And any comments?
Yeah, I'd say that's what I said. It's taking a part of Brennan's system and putting it into a lesser perspective. So it's not that extreme to make only a certain portion of the people vote, but it's more taking only. It's really to let the people that know run it. However, the most important thing is, like Lydia said, to have public relations with the society which you're supposed to lead. It cannot be just leave it up to the people that know, because then it will be, oh, they didn't do what we wanted because we never discussed it. So it has to be very direct democracy in some way. It has to be talked about and discussed with the public in order for them to receive what they were hoping for, in order for the politicians to be able to do their job correctly.
Yes, and there is another thing. Some young people want the state to take care of them.
Yes.
And that is like impossible by definition, because you as an individual, it's your duty to work on yourself, to develop yourself, to learn, to go further. Government could kind of pitch in,
support.
But everyone is kind of majority maybe of young people. Maybe I'm wrong. On Balkans, they're like, in this system we can't do anything, we're helpless. And no, that's not true. Like, you're able-bodied, able-minded, and you can do anything. You just have to push through. And it's like, that's like this prejudice with young people. It's nothing's gonna change. No, it will change, but you need to be the initiator.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to be the one to initiate the change. Maybe you won't change something on bigger level, but you're gonna do it one person at a time, like the lady said.
It's a very deep-rooted mindset. That
Sweden's voice now.
Okay. As a Swedish youth, I feel like in Sweden we take the democracy for granted, because we've had it for us young people. We feel like we've had it for our whole lives, because we have, and it always has felt like the obvious thing, like that we have democracy. And so we're kind of too, like the young people are kind of too comfortable with letting all the political parties do everything. And it has come to a point where, because we take democracy for so granted, enough people don't go to vote. Like a lot of young people I know didn't vote, which I was personally very mad about. I've spoken with them about it in length, but that's a different topic. But like, because we have had it for a while, we now, in my opinion, the young generation doesn't like feel like they need to do anything. And that's, I don't know the exact percentage, but like young people in politics, about half, if not more, are there just because their parents or siblings are part of a political party or something similar. And we don't do enough to encourage more young people to get into politics, because like people don't think they themselves can change a party. But if enough people think they can change a party, then a party will change to what they think is the better choice. Because right now, a lot of people think that none of the parties are actually like something I really believe in, but I lean mostly toward this party, so I will vote for it.
But
and it's kind of pessimistic.
I can give you some more statistics on that, because if you go, let's leave aside the latest election for the European Parliament and go back to the election to the Swedish Parliament. In the most of the suburbs in Sweden, just 50% of the people did their democratic job. They voted. The rest didn't. And I show you now a picture, because this is also a very fresh study that I've been making together with a company called Novus, pretty well known in Sweden. 67% of the people we asked can't imagine becoming a politician. That's quite horrifying. And I think we shall jump to another one, to just before you come back again, to some other problems here. We also asked the politicians, and you see we have done it for a quite long period, 2018 to 2024. And 63% of the politicians in the parliament have had threats or abusive treatments, weekly based. 53% of women are negatively affected, which means that they sometimes don't pick up a very, very important question in the parliament, because they know what will happen, so they don't. I have heard so many journalists stating the same thing. No, we don't write about integration, for instance, because we will be so blamed that we can't stand it. And it's another situation for the men, but take also in consideration that 40% of our politicians in the parliament believe that democracy is under threat. And I want to show you a clip before we proceed in the discussion. 2 years ago, there was a murder here in Almedalen, and another victim was actually the leader for the Center political party, Annie Lööf. She's also an important person in the film, and I think we should listen to her so that you get a very concrete picture on what is this all about. It's not only polarization, it's threats, it's hate. And she left as a party leader, very much due to this. So here comes Annie Lööf.
Det jag tycker har varit allra jobbigast är ju det som kommer hem till en i min bostad, i mitt hem, där jag står vid min köksö i köket och öppnar breven. Jag minns en gång då jag fick ett brev med, så rullade det ut tomhylsor. Såna här stora tomhylsor som bara rullade ut på köksön. Jag liksom blev alldeles kall och för jag blev så ställd. Vad fan är det här, tänkte jag. Jag har haft det som då hette Svenskarnas parti eller något sånt där. Ett nazistiskt parti som dukade upp min sista måltid utanför min garageuppfart och filmade detta. Jag har fått kidnappningshot mot min äldsta dotter. Där man har beskrivit vilken förskola hon går på. Vilket gjorde att jag kände mig som världens sämsta mamma när jag fick gå till förskolan och berätta att du får Ni får aldrig lämna henne till någon annan än mig eller min man.
Kan du beskriva det lite tydligare så jag förstår det här eviga smattret av hat och hot och hur det ändå påverkade ditt beslut att avgå?
Det är klart att det tär. Att hela tiden få kommentarer slängd i ansiktet. Eller människor som kommer fram när man är ute och går och spottar en på fötterna. Det kostar. Det har ett väldigt högt pris i vårt samhälle idag. Och det är ju det jag vill folk ska få upp ögonen för. Jag vill att man ska ställa sig frågan, ska det vara så här? Kan vi få igång en sån diskussion så skulle det stärka Sverige som demokrati i vårt demokratiska samhälle. Så att inte fler behöver ställa sig frågan som jag gjorde i somras. Är det värt det?
Comments on this. Annie Lööf is no longer a party leader for those Center Democrats because she resigned very much due to all the threats, not only that she has been in that position for a long time. What does it mean when we have this situation?
Well, it's like quite literally a threat to democracy to have your political leaders be threatened, not just them, but their families, friends. That, like, if it goes on, it's then more people would not like the. So you said, like, what was it, 67% of people couldn't imagine themselves becoming a politician. That number is going way up if this keeps going on, which is like I'd say one of, if not the biggest threat currently, except for voting, which is also part of it, to democracy.
Are we responsible? Can we do anything about it? Because everyone here is running around on the digital platforms. How are you behaving when something happens and when somebody says something to you?
Like on the internet or like?
No, I'm asking you. We are responsible too, everyone,
yes,
because we are playing on the same arena.
Yeah.
I think, like it was mentioned in the clip of your movie, there has to be also rules on what can be and should be said on social media. Some kind of because social media is a wild place, not just social media, the internet in general. It's a very open place where everyone can say anything they want, regardless of who it is hurting and what they're saying. So it's very needed that there's some kind of internet education on how to act on the internet and how.
There is a place
Yes.
for indoctrination, serious indoctrination right there. So maybe I kind of disagree with you. I would let anyone say anything, while I would put kind of a limit, politeness.
Yeah, that's
no,
what I mean.
But just kind of like open space, but discussion in this manner where because when you kind of try to put limits and try to regulate these things, it can go to the extreme and it can become too.
There already is digital education on how you're supposed to act online.
But it could become too restrictive, and then another social network will emerge to, become the new.
But you're not supposed to restrict people's voices. You're just supposed to teach them on how to act. You can't be rude to everyone you see, and that's the first rule, right? When you go to school, you tell people you're not supposed to be rude to your friends.
No, you're right, absolutely.
Right, so you need to actually educate people that they're supposed to reflect those same manners on the internet, and that you can't just say whatever you want. You can, but you have to be nice about it.
Yeah, about the language, I agree.
I also hate to be rude, but time is running away, and I really would like that we come a little bit closer to this question, what to do, and I jump over this because during the film production I visited Gettysburg in United States, and we have been talking about this, the way we discuss in between in a very polite way. It should be, but isn't. And when I visited the University of Gettysburg, I saw something very interesting. This is a very specific historical town in the United States. There was a battle during the Civil War. They killed each other. Abraham Lincoln came there a couple of years after that, 1860 something, and asked the question in a very famous speech, can we ever, human beings, coming back to the atmosphere of the Constitution, where we respect each other when we have different opinions, instead of killing each other? And in US now, which is not so well known, there is an organization called Braver Angels running around in the country teaching how to discuss. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds. I think we can see that. It's a good lesson that we can transplant to Sweden or to any kind of discussion. Let's have a look.
Människor kan tycka olika, men vi är fortfarande lika och vi behöver lyssna på varandra. Det finns nu organisationer som försöker ta fasta på just det.
Welcome to the Braver Angels podcast, a new way of talking politics. I'm your host, Kieran O'Connor.
How do we encounter disagreement?
The message of bringing Americans together and building a house united is getting out there. So at the end of the day, that's really what matters.
Braver Angels är en ny organisation som finns över hela USA. De anordnar debatter med syftet att bygga broar mellan människor som har skilda åsikter. Det som är unikt med metoden är kravet att kompromisslöst respektera sina meningsmotståndare.
I'm not arguing to abolish the Second Amendment because I don't believe anyone should have a gun.
The Second Amendment gives us the right to a well-regulated militia.
What is it with the culture of America, the culture of violence that we have created here?
Students want this. Okay, a lot of them have never experienced a conversation that's been respectful. They can get on social media, they see so much rancor, anger, and discord. But when they get into the space, that we create for them, and they take ownership of the topic at hand, usually a topic that's dividing society, dividing our citizens. It's not only a theory, it's not only rhetoric, it's an experience of bringing people together and giving them the experience of having a conversation with each other where they come out with more understanding, more empathy, critical thinking, and less of this what we call affective polarization, which is the person who disagrees with me, that's my enemy, that's my adversary. This counters that.
Right to bear arms shall not be infringed. That goes against...
Det här är en i detalj utarbetad metod. Studenterna är uppdelade i 2 läger, för och emot rätten att bära vapen. Man måste begära ordet hos mötets ordförande. Det är också hit debattörerna riktar sina motargument.
So that's how the question goes, and I'll walk you through it. It seems weird at first, but I promise you it works out. All negative energy, all anger, all vitriol, everything like that, push it directly to me. Don't push it directly onto everybody else's, onto the people who you actually want.
Det är alltså inte tillåtet att attackera enskild person, bara argumentera i sak. Det blir respektfullt.
That occurred in the Soviet Union and that occurred in Cambodia, and what happened in all 3 of those places? Genocide.
Sir, and can you please ask this to the speaker in the form of a question? Just say, what does the speaker think about
So what is your opinion on that?
No,
Do you agree?
What is the speaker?
What is the speaker?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Please remain standing. Mr. Speaker, you may address that however you like.
Does the speaker have any...
Jag tänker på våra partiledardebatter där personangreppen duggar tätt. Kontrasten mot det jag upplever i Gettysburg blir ju nästan komisk. Kanske går det inte att lära gamla hundar som jag själv att sitta. Men man kan bygga ett nytt klimat med en ny generation.
What I think we did in there, I think that was really wonderful because that shows we can bridge our ideological gaps, we can talk to each other, we can have a civil conversation, and we can have solutions.
It's up to you guys, the new generation. I know that we are running out of time, but a couple of weeks ago I was in Stockholm and showed a film, and on the stage I had a young guy, the former Prime Minister Ingvar Carlsson. He's 89. I'm just 74, so. And it was very interesting because there were 200-300 people there, And after the film he said exactly this. He said, it is not. He said, you can't sit here and just listen. That's not enough. Now we all must become democracy activists. And of course, what is that? I think that comes down to ordinary life, how we behave to each other. I mean, democracy is, first of all, it's a constitutional system, basic laws, freedom of speech, the right to vote, but it's also a culture, a democratic culture. And this guy, also Swede, and I like this proverb, to misuse the word is to hold humanity in contempt. It undermines the bridges and poisons the sources. Lovely poetic way to express what we are talking about. Or this one, who is one of my absolutely favorites. I believe in democracy because democracy is the only system that believes in me, and it's the same for you. It's the only system that believes in us. And finally, this guy, the time is always right to do what is right. And the time is now. Okay? Or
time is now.
The time is now.
The time is now.
That was the end of the story. Okay.
That was a beautiful ending of this seminar. Thank you very much, Jan, for being here today. And thank you to Margareta, your wife, as well, for being here and making this happen. And thank you to the panel. And thank you, of course, to you two for bringing this alive. And to Margareta, of course, and Freja Forum Academy, who's initiated this seminar. So thank you very much, everybody. And I really liked the woman in the film in the beginning. She said, we can make this happen, we can make it done in a community. And she said, if democracy is being used.
Exactly. Simple as that.
It's as simple as that. So thank you, everybody, for attending this seminar. And let's go out there and make democracy great again. Thank you.